everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here. Absolutely brutal Bitcoin market, crypto market, everything's getting tanked. Certainly seem to flip a lot of bulls into bears right now. The truth is that I still think that a lot of things I'm looking at are still holding. For example, this is still the Gann arc over here on the weekly that I'm seeing with 360 and 500, and I'm just gonna keep on. I didn't really change a darn thing, honestly. I just kind of leave all the settings the same, and it's still serving as some pretty decent market symmetry here, where this arc here means something, 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 and this angle over here also seems to mean something. Now, there are going to be a period of time where I'm going underneath the angle over here, but so far this angle is holding, and as long as it's holding as potential support, I'm still going to take a look at this angle over here and see what it's going to do. Last week ended up closing above the bull market support band. This week we ended up starting the first day underneath the bull market support band again and come back down to this level here. Does it mean that we break underneath this level, and does it mean that we have to go sideways here for another few months before potentially breaking through, kind of like what we did over here? All these things are possible. You're looking at the Bollinger Band. Where are we at right now? Does it mean that we're going to have to go sideways here, waiting for Bollinger Band to squeeze and then touch the low Bollinger Band before going up further? If we're really truly breaking underneath the 20-week moving average here, could it mean that we go sideways here, Bollinger Band comes back up here, we tap the 80,000 zone again, maybe a little bit lower before going up higher? I think those are entirely possibilities where this could happen, right? I have a hard time still really seeing that the bull market is over, right? Because overall it's just been forming higher highs and higher lows. And I made a video yesterday kind of talking about how I don't think the market is really over here. But you could have some cool down here, and it looks like whatever shenanigans they want to do, it looks like they're coming back to some pretty crucial level to really back testing it. And while they're doing that, they're basically trying to back test some pretty important levels here. Now, I do have the fib levels here that I'm showing here, and you can see, if I just get rid of the Gann level here for a second, you can see how these fib levels really do mean something, right? It seems like the 0.618 was a very important zone, got rejected, came back over here, almost back test almost perfectly, right? And then we just went up and shot up to the next level where we get rejected here around 1.618. These are completely normal bull market behavior, and when we get rejected at a level after you break through 3 levels, you come back testing 2. It's not really a bearish thing, although it can feel extremely bearish during the back test, just like how it felt extremely bearish during this back test here, just like how it felt extremely bearish down here and down here. It's not really necessarily a bearish thing when it does that, right? So the sentiment doesn't really seem to match what the chart is telling us, and I think that is extremely interesting. Just look at the monthly here. This looks like it wants to form a higher low, right, before further bullish continuation. And if I look at my monthly Gann chart here, which I think this is it right here, if you look at the monthly Gann chart here, there's really nothing that has changed. I still think that we're traditionally going to experience a couple months of weakness after we break above the arc, right? Every single time we broke above the arc over here, we experience a few months of weakness over here, right? Before further bullish continuation. Here, after we broke through the arc, backtest, and experience a few months of weakness here before further bullish continuation, right? Here, not so much. It just decided to go up to the next arc. But I think that's also early cycle. This is like early Bitcoin behavior. I don't think it's too much tied into like global liquidity. I think really started a lot of ties to global liquidity starting around 2015, 2016, 2017. I think this is really the first cycle where it's really linked to global liquidity. And right now, I just see us kind of just cooling off here. I'm not really seeing anything, particularly concerned. If you also look at the Ichimoku cloud here in the Tenkan, it's basically just backtesting and doing this stepwise thing, kind of rising up on the Tenkan, kind of how it does pretty much every single bull market, especially 2015, 2017 bull market. You can see how it just kind of basically riding the Tenkan up on the way up, right? And it's very systematically so. I think the cycle is just slower. We're kind of riding up here. Spent about 8 months touching the Tenkan, push through, spending another 3 or 4 months touching the Tenkan, and it's just kind of just riding up along the Tenkan. But I think the cycle over here seems to be a little bit slower than the cycle over here. I do think that we are getting a little bit of higher highs and higher lows here, and the Tenkan is also kind of going up here. I think we might be right around here in terms of where we are at the bull cycle, right around here. And I think this last cycle is a little bit different here because I think it just kind of went way too far, way too fast here for 6 months in a row without cooling off, and it just got really tired, came back tested the baseline over here, just couldn't hold, and just ended up breaking down underneath, right? I'm not really seeing that kind of behavior. I'm not seeing that impulsivity. I'm not seeing that crazy Bollinger Band expansion, right? I'm not seeing the crazy Bollinger Band expansion over here to upside to downside. I'm not seeing the crazy Bollinger Band to upside to downside. I'm just kind of seeing other things like, going, meh. We're still kind of get things going here, but we're not having that crazy impulsivity that's happening quite just yet. And this cycle has just been extremely brutal. I mean, a lot of people are expecting Bitcoin, whenever it's done with bear market, it should be pretty bullish, right? But no, it's just making these kind of stepwise kind of thing. It's a little bit too slow for people, and I think as a result, a lot of the miners are not really, that bullish because we recently just haven't had that great impulse to really change everybody, to change the sentiment into a little bit more euphoric, and that just simply hasn't really happened yet, right? So a lot of them have been lagging behind. Look at MSTR here for a second. It's been basically following the cycle behavior of Bitcoin pretty closely, although MSTR, because it's a financial instrument to leverage Bitcoin, is already has bullish band expansion. If anything, it looks like it's a little bit more tired than Bitcoin actually. And this is fine because I think MicroStrategy is usually a little bit more like an early cycle behavior when it comes to correlation with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin went on and make another higher high here in November 2021, but MicroStrategy never did. So there's a potential where MicroStrategy later on in the cycle might end up not performing as well as Bitcoin. But there's no indication that like the big parabolic move has happened yet for Bitcoin. So that does make me wonder whether or not MicroStrategy is still kind of like going up for it. That does make me wonder whether or not that's the case. If you're looking at the weekly, it's been still kind of holding support here as expected, right? And it's showing you Bitcoin is holding the 1.272 on the linear, whereas MSTR is holding 1.272 here on the log, right? And it's been holding that area okay, came back tested the arc over here. Does it mean that we move from here? Maybe, but I do think that you have a lot of these resistance up here to fight against. Your last time, whenever MicroStrategy went up real hot, and to go up sideways for about 6 months. I think right now we're probably around the third to fourth month in, right? And we're just kind of doing what is necessary to do to really backtest a lot of the zone down here. I do think that the Bollinger Band's contracting here now, so if it needs to make a next impulse, it should do that. Maybe it takes another month or two to kind of backtest the Bollinger Band down here a little bit as it continues to kind of contract, right? As price has done nothing, and that's when you have the Bollinger Band contraction here. And then we need to have some shenanigans where we need to maybe spend about a month or two trying to break about the 20-week moving average before going further bullish continuation. But right now, this cool down here is completely warranted because this big giant move that happened from August to December is very much of a local topping signal. Like that's very much a local topping signal. Whenever they just kind of push through like this, very unhealthily all the way up to 1.618 here. It's pretty unhealthy. I think this, basically if you push through like 3 fib levels and correcting 2, it's not a bearish thing, right? You push for an arc and then you backtest an arc, that's not a bearish thing. The only thing is if global liquidity is drying up. That would be the one thing that would get people, a little bit more concerned, right? So if you look at M2 global liquidity supply, you can see that there really isn't any, sign that this global liquidity is really kind of drying up. If anything, I think this corrected move over here, MicroStrategy, was just kind of lagging this downward trend over here. And I do think that this downward trend, I'm going to keep showing this over and over and over again to kind of illustrate a point here. I think this downward trend over here was necessary because you have a resistance zone over here of global liquidity that has lasted for about 2.5 years. Broke through it, and we are doing a necessary backtest here. And right now we're going back up, right? So there's a potential where Bitcoin and MicroStrategy are just lagging behind the global liquidity expansion. And I think that there's still a good chance that MicroStrategy would maybe need to go sideways here for about a month or two, correct this technicals, break through some resistance, including the Buoyant support band, including the 20-week moving average, right? Including some of the stuff up here in the Tenkan Kijun here in Ichimoku. Maybe we need to get a little bit closer to the weekly Ichimoku cloud here before bouncing back up again like we did over here, right? So there are a few things I'm kind of looking at here. That's kind of what I'm thinking about. Now, Coinbase, very much brutalized, I do think that Coinbase tend to kind of undershoot and overshoot things here because you can see how it really broke down through the cloud here, but actually just end up spending another month or two and just end up breaking back above, right? And now you have another back test, but this time instead of back testing the bottom of the cloud, we're testing the top of the cloud here. And we are so far on a Monday dipping underneath of that. Can it go back down to the bottom of the cloud here? Entirely possible, right? I've been buying CoinL, I've been buying CoinL right down here. I've been buying CoinL over here as well, right? Right now, I'm probably about, CoinL is like a 2x leverage Coinbase play. And right now, I'm down on my CoinL probably about like 30% because of decay, right? I do think that as long as it's able to have a big impulse move like this, I think CoinL is going to do very well. But these things are very high leverage. I'm doing it because I'm bullish on the market and I'm a speculator for a market. I think Coinbase is going to do very well because I still think that the cryptocurrency market is actually setting up for some pretty interesting move, I should say, in 2025. Although it doesn't really feel like that right now, right? But I still think that Coinbase is still setting up for something that's pretty decent here. Now, if you, I don't just have CoinL. The majority of the Coinbase exposure I have is actually just the Coinbase stock, right? Rather than these like 2x leverage instrument. But I cannot ignore the fact that when I started looking at like a Gann square here, and this is done on the daily, I believe. Yeah, wait, no, this is kind of messing up here. Hang on just a second. I see. That was done on the 2-day. 1440 and 5, those are my numbers. And I can't help but to see that it seemed to be respecting these Gann arc levels here pretty well. And we seem to be coming back down to this zone over here again, right? Can it go dip down further to the teens? That's entirely possible. Can it dip down further to like the 15, 16 range? That's entirely possible. But if I'm able to capture one of these big like run, let's say if I'm able to capture all the way from like, $16 all the way to like 80, right? Would it matter of just a few months over here? Or if I end up buying the bottom over here around like, $3 or $4 and I keep on riding up the volatility up to the peak over here around the 80s, all it takes sometimes just for a big impulse to happen for about 6 months to a year for something like this to do very well. If it doesn't, I'm going to lose a lot of money, right? But that's something that I'm really, kind of into. I still think that CleanSpark is just still going through extreme correction over here. Still respecting my line over here. At this point, I'm just going to say that a lot of the miners are still very much more like a sentiment play, if you will, right? And if you're looking at clean spark, I still see here on the daily time frame where over the last few months or so, price went down on balance volume continues to be up, right? And so far on Monday we gapped up and we just basically came back and closed the gap, right? We simply don't have that sentiment. Same thing with Mara. Mara's bullish divergence actually is a lot more pronounced because you can see that it's really also happening right now, right? Price going down on balance volume going up, and you can also see that on the weekly here too. This is how pronounced Mara is. You can see it on the weekly, really ever since like January 2024 up to this point. You can see how the unbalanced volume has been going up. So they've been accumulating. This whole zone seems to be reaccumulation. When does it end up mooning from here? I don't think anybody really knows the answer to that, right? Bit farms, again, very brutalized, came back down, back test this horizontal zone over here. It's already broken down underneath this arc over here, right? Came back down to this horizontal level over here. Extremely brutalized. You know, it was green and to start the day, and then just end up coming back down here. Very, very much brutalized. Cypher, same thing, right? Looks like we're going to break back above and challenge the top of the arc over here. Nope, just end up coming back down to 0.618, coming back down to the bottom of the arc over here, right? An iron, same thing. You know, it looked like last week we closed above the 0.618. Right now we are kind of underneath of that a little bit. Now this is a weekly chart, so we don't really quite have the weekly close yet. If it ends up being a wick, it's actually not a bearish thing, but so far very much brutalized, right? Wolf, so far on a Monday, broke down underneath my arc over here, even though the last week looked like it was holding up pretty well. Decided to just kind of break down underneath over here, right? Very brutal. Come back and back test the bottom of the weekly Ichimoku cloud over here. Extremely brutal action. Cores looks like it was going to break about the 2.618, but nope. On a Monday, got rejected. Came back down 9%, right? Riot initially looks like we're going to have a daily gap up. Nope. Just decide to come back down and back test the gap down here, right? So a lot of things are just not ready yet. Same thing with HUD. You know, looks like it was going to break about the 0.136 linear fib over here, but now we decided to come back down here to brutalize you some more, right? Could it come back all the way down to the 0.382 here, this horizontal zone over here? I think that's entirely possible for HUD8 to do that, right? BitDeer, which I thought was actually very bullish because it ended up closing the weekly candle with a little bit of a very much of a beautiful hammer candle over here about the 0.76. What happened so far on a Monday? Well, it looks like I wanted to gap up, but nope, decided not to. Decided to come back, close the gap, and also went back underneath the 0.786 over here. Things can always dip down underneath fib levels here on a daily. As long as the weekly is playing out, we'll see, right? The week just got started, and so far Bitcoin has been brutalized on a Monday. So we'll see, right? I just kind of want to share these thoughts here. None of these are deterministic. They're all probabilistic. But if I just kind of take a zoom out here, you can see BitDeer has been making higher highs and higher lows. You know, HUD8's been making higher highs and higher lows. Riot, well, it's trying to change a trend. It's trying to make a higher high and higher low over here, right? Cores, this is the higher high, this is a higher low, right? Wolf, if I just turn off all these indicators, higher high and higher low, right? Iron, equal high over here. Some people might call it a double top here, but we're trying to put in a higher low in, right? Cypher, a little bit of equal high here, but we're trying to put a higher low in. Bitfarm has been severely, brutalized. It's not forming higher highs and higher lows. It's just a parabolic downtrend, right? But at some point, these parabolic downtrend would break. I just don't know when that's going to be, right? Mara, going sideways here in the rectangle, clean spark, has been making lower highs and lower low, right? But it looks like we are really starting to have, a lot of bullish divergence here being built up on the weekly. Last time when you had bearish divergence on the way up, you see when price went up here on the last lick up on bearish divergence, what happened? Low highs and lower low for a year, right? And what are we having right now? A little bit of bullish divergence here being built up. Doesn't mean that it's going to work out just like it did over here. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But it certainly seems like the downward trajectory, the downward momentum seems to be slowing down, and it certainly seems like we're back testing this horizontal zone over here still, right? So that is going to be my higher time frame thoughts. Whether or not it works out this cycle, really, honestly, it doesn't really matter what I say. The only thing that really matters is global liquidity. So if global liquidity is able to break out, then I think these miners are going to do extremely well. If global liquidity doesn't break out, then miners are not going to do well at all. I've done plenty of side-by-side comparison with Mara, because Mara really wasn't a miner, I think, until like maybe 2019 or something like that. So if you were doing comparison, I think the best thing to do comparison would be maybe start around like 2019, and then you can do like a monthly comparison starting around 2019 or so to, let's say, IWM, which is actually going to be, to me, is going to be like the source of liquidity to tell you where we are at the cycle. I think IWM is going to be a pretty good indicator for that. Now, if I try to line up these two here, give me a second. If I'm trying to line up these two here between Mara and IWM, which is the Russell 2000, this is the small cap index, right? We are really looking for a true breakout here. We really haven't had that. Even though initially I thought that November was going to be it, where this big giant impulse came over here, but nope, decided to run right into resistance, and so far we're not able to really close a month yet above this wick over here, right? And so far Mara's responding the same. Like if you look at these two charts, it's basically the same chart. So I do think that if IWM does well, I think miners such as Mara is going to do very well, right? I think if you're asking me in terms of what I think about IWM, I do have a chart here that was kind of showing on X just now. And I'm going to go back all the way to the beginning of IWM. I'm going to pull up the Bollinger Band here. And I think where we're at this particular cycle is that we're at a very much of a disbelief phase. It's my speculation, right? Of course. I don't know for sure. I mean, you guys can listen to anybody you guys want to do, right? I'm not here trying to rack your portfolio or whatever. I'm just here to show you patterns. I see a lot of similarities between what IWM has been doing over the last 10 years to compare to like the decade before that. The decade before that, you had the dot-com bubble burst, you had the great financial crisis, right? Big two giant dips over here. Next thing you know, you end up having liquidity coming in from the great financial crisis because banks can't fail anymore. And you have a correction after you touched up a Bollinger Band over here. Got close to low Bollinger Band here, didn't quite get there, pushed back up, back tested 20 and just ran, right? Usually these kinds of things are bullish, right? What do we have over here? Well, we got a little bit of a slump here in 2015, 2016, right? We have a double bottom over here with the COVID, right? Basically back testing the same zone over here, very similar to what happened over here. And the entire time, price has been kind of going up over here, hitting up a Bollinger Band in very similar spots that you do compared to the last decade or the decade before that. And you have a big giant run up here. You have a big giant run up because of increase in liquidity from the great financial crisis with money printing, banks can't fail, blah, 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 right? Same thing here, you have COVID, money printing, blah, blah, blah. A little bit too far overshot over here, had to correct, right? A little bit too far overshot over here, had to correct. As we correct, sentiment has been reset. We're back testing the 20, and maybe we're going to get ready for the next run over here. I see this very similar morphology here being developing. So if that's the case, there is a potential for IWM to go down even lower, right? To 205, maybe even wick down here below, right? Wicking down, wicking up above. These kind of things happen all the time, right? If it ends up doing that, that's not necessarily a bearish thing, right? Well, on the Ichimoku, you have like 203, 204 zone over here on the Kijun, right? Sometimes on a bull market, I guess it can backtest the Kijun. It's a little bit unusual, but at the beginning of the bull market, sometimes it does that, So I'm not against it coming back down, tapping that zone, building up more energy before building up further impulse to go higher, right? I think we are at a pretty critical zone though, in terms of the 20-month moving average, in terms of the Ichimoku Kijun over here. So we'll see whether or not we're able to build up enough energy, and we'll see whether or not global liquidity is truly going to break out of this horizontal resistance zone over here, which was the reason why you had a bear market. Because global liquidity just went sideways, right? Global liquidity went sideways here, bear market, right? Global liquidity went sideways over here, bear market, right? But whenever we end up breaking out about backtest, we have a leg up, right? Whenever we end up breaking about backtest, we have a leg up, right? Are we there yet? I don't know. I don't know. Just showing you what I see. All right, guys, take care. Bye.